Hey, good morning, students. Today is September the 4th, 2020, the year of COVID. And today we're going to start with Native American cultures in Texas. We're going to start with the Caddo and the Wichita. And remember that I told you that Native American tribes in Texas were divided by language groups, okay? And they were then subdivided by, well, they were in their own language group, but then they would divide themselves into kinship groups. The cattle, for the most part, were really big, and they did live in extended family groups, but they also brought in other cattle into that. Also, there were several cattle. The cattle lived in the eastern woodlands in the area north of Houston. Maybe not as far as Huntsville, but in the area of Lufkin, and also places like Tyler, Texas, in that area, all the way to the Louisiana border. I'm pretty sure that there were some cattle that lived in Louisiana as well. They were a very complex culture, okay? They lived in very large villages, unlike the other Indians. They flourished due to agriculture. In addition to that, they had a very, very complex religion. They had a trinity. They had the devil, God the Father, and Jesus. In addition to that, they built mounds, which were used to worship. I'm really sorry about the glare on my glasses. See if I can fix it here, like this. No, that makes it worse. And that cuts my head off right there. So maybe that's not that bad. In addition to that, the other thing that they did was that they had an elder system, an established elder system. That means that the elders ran the show, and they lived along the river, along the Sabine and the Red River. I haven't mentioned that yet. They were divided into five different groups, which was the Hassani, the Nakadochi, the Nokono, the Kisachi, and the Caddo proper. Okay, that doesn't mean that there could not have been some other subgroups there as well. All right. Now, in addition to that, they were very friendly. They traded with each other. They traded with other Mississippian tribes. In addition to that, uh, they also worshipped the sun, the moon, and the stars. Uh, and in addition to that, they knew that corn was at the center of their culture. Okay, that's one of the things that they did do. Okay, I'm just gonna take my glasses off because I really get irritated by that glare until I figure out my lighting and stuff. Okay, I'm new at this. I'm sorry. I'm trying my best. So if I'm squinting, it's because I'm trying to read my notes. I do have my notes here. Okay, the same notes that you need for the exam. Okay, so they're run by tribal elders. But at the end of the day, they're a matrilineal culture. That means that females ran the show. Okay. In addition to that, they had an explanation for creation. The origin of the earth was matrilineal. That means that God was or is a female. The death of a pregnant daughter at the hands of the devil, and and gave rise to a child, which was the Christ-like child. Okay, they worshiped the sun, the moon, the stars, rain, everything that was necessary to live. Corn it was very common for Native Americans to worship corn. Okay, in addition to that, they had a division of labor. Men hunted and built lodges. Women planted, roasted corn, cooked, processed furs, and did the women things. Um, but they were fairly equal in everything that they did. They weren't, even though they were categorized, they were not. How can I say it? Um, they were not misogynistic or sexist or anything like that. Native Americans were actually pretty good at stuff like that. They were very family oriented, incredibly family oriented. Almost all Native Americans were very family oriented. They traded widely with each other, and unfortunately, about 95 of them perished. De Soto is the one that comes in contact with them, and he decimates the Hassani. Uh, And in addition to that, they're weakened by warfare with the Atacapan and the Bidai. They're weakened by conflicts with the French and by disease and the Spanish. So they kind of get it from all sides. Okay. In addition to that, later on, the Great Plains tribes come in, and the Great Plains tribes do a good number on them as well. So eventually, by I would say 1800, they ceased to be a cohesive, homogenous group, and the cattle were gone. Now, I'm not saying that cattle don't exist still now, but they definitely diminished in numbers. The next tribe that we're going to talk about is the Atacapan and the Bidai, Obidas. I don't know. I'm not a Native American, so I don't know if they pronounce it Bidas or Bidai. Okay. They lived north of the Caddo along the Louisiana border, kind of like a strip along the Sabine there. The Caddo were right here, and then the Atacapan were right in here in this area. All right. They were incredibly violent. Okay, they were the man eaters. The Choctaw call them the man eaters. They practiced ritualistic cannibalism. They're the ones that had the sloping head. They were very muscular. They were hunter, fisher people, and gatherers. They never took up farming. Okay, they were nomadic along the coastal plains. Uh, One of the animals that was at the center of their culture was the alligator. They would use the alligator skin for protection. They would use it for food. They would use alligator grease for weatherproofing. They would use alligator for shelter. They would actually smear alligator grease all over themselves to keep the bugs off them. It stunk really bad. In addition to that, they lived in mobile grass huts. Okay, mobile grass huts. Um, Little is known about them, but they were very similar to the cattle. Remove the mounds and the agriculture. Okay, they were the ones that also wear breechcloth. They walked about nude. Women wore skirts made of Spanish moth. They held very long festivals, dancing festivals. Okay, where they would dance up for 3 days, up to 3 days. They would fast and then they would dance while the women sang. The women. This was just something that would be done to promote manliness and promote entrance into manhood. Okay. In addition to that, they were ruled by a tribal elder. They were incredibly muscular, and they had a sloping head, like I said before. And this practice started at birth with they would use a plank. They would put a plank and tie it, and that was seen as a sign of beauty. They did not have a complex religious society. They believed that they had come from moistures during a great flood. Pearls come from moisture, so why not people? And they did have a belief in the afterlife. They believed that you would go to some place that was heaven unless you were bitten by a snake, or either bitten by a snake, or if you had been subject to ritualistic cannibalism. That means that ritualistic cannibalism, for those of you that don't know, the difference between ritualistic cannibalism and dietary cannibalism is that ritualistic cannibalism, they don't really eat your meat. They just cut your nose off or your ear off, and then they chew it in front of you and spit it out. Now, if they did that to you, or if you had been a victim of a snake bite, then the chances are that you were not going to get into heaven. Okay. Um, the Bidai or the Bidas were a subtribe of the Atacapan. Unfortunately, by 1908, only about 9 Atacapans remained. One of the reasons that they managed to live so much longer than the cattle and stuff is that they were very resistant. Their violence actually allows them to prevail longer than other Indian tribes, and that in itself makes them more resilient at the end. Okay, so we got the Takapan and the Bidai. Remember, the significant things about the Takapan and the Bidas are that they are ritualistic cannibals. Their identifiable traits are the fact that they have a sloping. They really don't have a organized religion while they're at it, and more importantly, they do live on into the 19th century, at least a little bit. I mean, into the 20th century.